I'm Joan Cleather, and I've always had a love for the theatre. And when my husband Ted and I moved back from Montreal many years ago, where there was lots of good theatre there and lots of good music, we were drawn to the Chester Playhouse. I love its unique mix of professional touring companies and local community talent. After attending many shows at the Playhouse, I joined the board in 1995 and then later served as president and past president. So I had quite a few years when I was really involved with the administration. And as a newcomer, I had a lot to learn. I was a newcomer to the community and to the board. And one of the first things I remember was working with Gail Fraser to develop a membership list. And we wanted to have a membership list that we put on the computer and we could call up by different fields and so on. And we were kind of newbies, so it was a big learning experience. But we managed, and we were able to set it up so we could pick out our members, our sponsors, our advertisers, government connections, and so on. And it really made a big difference in terms of communication. And in order to improve that communication, we decided to have a newsletter. And we called it From the Wings. I have a copy here. And the newsletter was just a simple photocopy sheet. Sometimes it was even 2 sheets together when we had more news. The idea was to bring the members news of what was going on in the Playhouse, the different shows that were going to be there, and also what the board was involved with and things that we needed to communicate. So that was a good thing. And we had, at the time, Chris Hyde was our managing director, and he always had a column in there, and that was always fun for people to read as well. So that meant that we were increasing the Playhouse's visibility in a sense out in the community. One of the mantras we had at the board was, we're not only fundraising, we're friend raising. And that was our idea. One of the big fundraisers we had was what we called a seat sale. And this is a bit of a misnomer because the audience wasn't really buying a seat. What they were buying was a small brass plaque, and they could have it inscribed with their name and a message. And this was it. And we had them etched in Lunenburg at a firm. And then I would take an armrest, I would take it off the seat in the Playhouse, carry the armrest and the plaques over to David Chaplin Saunders, who was a very fine woodworker. And he was very generous as a volunteer, and he would scoop out a little bit sort of shallow depression there so he could glue the plaque in place. Then when the finished plaque was ready, I would take it back to the Playhouse, and with this sleeve I would hammer it with a mallet onto the Playhouse seat. So that was our seat sale, and people loved to come in and find their seats, whether they were named for their grandchildren or a loved one who was no longer with them, whatever. But it was a good feature, and we're going to save those somehow, even with the new Reno. One of the most important jobs we had while I was on the board was what we called Reno 2000. And now I know we're in the middle of this other renovation, but in early days, the Playhouse needed some repairs, and we didn't have very much money. But the board decided after long consultation that we might try to have a fundraising campaign of $35,000. That was a lot to us. Imagine our surprise when, to our astonishment, Christopher Ondaatje decided that he would offer us up to $250,000 if we could match him. So the scramble was on. Lots of fundraising strategies, campaigning, grant applications, looking for donors, and we worked away and we raised almost as much as we needed, and kindly Chris Ondaatje did top us up. But we began with what we had raised, and we decided that, well, first of all, we needed to have an architectural firm to satisfy the specs for the granting agencies. So a firm from Halifax drew up the plans for us, and using the specs that were provided, we put out the call for tenders, and a firm from the Valley was the one who won. And they came over and set up a field office outside at the back of the Playhouse on a neighboring property, which we had permission to park on. And the construction began, and what happened was they increased the whole footprint of the building back to as far as we could on our lot line. And it meant that we now had a real backstage instead of just a little walk past that was so narrow that hardly anybody could use it. And now it meant that there was space backstage to build props, build sets, congregate, store things, have the performers mingle there before they came on stage. And that was a wonderful addition, but above it was even better because we now had proper dressing rooms and a green room for the performers. And that made a big difference because before that, the performers had a tiny little cramped space at the front of the theater, up above the lobby, hardly any room. The flooring was uneven because that had been, don't forget, it had been a puppet theater and a movie house before we were using it as a theater, so it had no proper dressing rooms. And at that time, the performers had no access to the stage from the dressing rooms. So they had to come down either through the lobby and through the house to get to the stage, or go outside and go all the way around the outside of the building and come in at where there was a door beside the stage. So this was really such an improvement to have real dressing rooms upstairs and to be able to access from backstage and not have to do that. So we were thrilled about that. And then a little later on, when the money was coming in a bit more, the second phase, we were able to push out, lift the roof a little bit at the front, reconfigure that whole top floor in front above the lobby, and create what we now know as the Ondaatje Room, a wonderful lobby bar where people can mingle between shows and so on, and also pushed out that balcony. One of the things that had to be done at the time too, before they actually could build that, was we had to have a special firm come in to remove asbestos, because when it had been a movie theater, the projection area had to be all enclosed with asbestos in case of fire. So that was another big component of the reconfiguration and reconstruction. After we had managed to get as far as that with our renovation, we were invited by the province to enter into a sustainability program. This was a three-year project, strategic planning, to help a nonprofit become stable so that they didn't have to worry about future. And it was funded by the Nova Scotia Department of Heritage and the Arts. And we were one of a few groups that were invited to apply, and we succeeded. So 3 years of review and revise, with monitors and helpers coming to visit us every now and then from Halifax. They even brought in a woman from Alberta one year to meet with us and see if we were on the right track. And eventually we were able to produce a document that everybody approved of, and it has served since as a model for other agencies. So that was a big deal. I'd hate to think that it was all just work and no play, being on the board. It was a lot of work, but we had a lot of fun, and I went to so many wonderful shows, music and theatre, all kinds of things. Well, there was the Chester Drama Society, the children's productions. There were so many that it's hard to remember any favorites, but one that I did love, I was able to work backstage occasionally and sometimes on stage in a community theatre, and one of the ones that I loved, it was a part of an anniversary project for Chester's 250th anniversary. And this turned out to be a musical theatre. It started out as a little sort of a play, and it kept growing. It was written by Malcolm Calloway, and Dawn Harwood-Jones, his wife, was the musical director. And they had some other help with other performers. And some of us were roped in as community people, and we took the history of Chester through phase by phase. And it was really a wonderful, joyful time, and everybody enjoyed it very much. And I'm hoping now, with this new theatre, because I have so many wonderful memories, parties and fundraisers and galas and all those things that we did, I'm hoping that this new theatre will bring many, many good memories to others in the future for many years to come, because the Playhouse is an important part of this community. And I wish everyone well, and I'm longing for the opening in the spring.